Bocchi! I love Bocchi! You love Bocchi! Who doesn't love Bocchi? Bocchi the Rock has been a mega hit anime showing no signs of slowing down to this very day. But have you ever wondered what coincidences, creative decisions, production choices led to this masterpiece being created? Today, I bring you the full story of the production behind Bocchi the Rock.
私が今バンドやってる理由、一晩考えたけど、人気になってチヤホヤされたいっていうのは変わりない。でもそれは私だけじゃない。この4人でだ。
We begin all the way back at the creation of the original manga. After author Aki Hamaji finished her previous work, Kirari Books Miesochu, also a gag cute girls doing cute things manga, she immediately decided that her next work would be about a band. This is because, and I quote, "My only hobby other than manga are bands. She like me." But despite being a huge band fan, she was not particularly knowledgeable at all. In fact, she literally didn't know the difference between a bass and a guitar. I know a bro who's molding right now. Thus began the journey called research. Hamaji-sensei would try dabbling in learning the drums and bass to understand how everything works. As Asian Kung Fu Generation was one of her favorite bands, she would even go to Shimokita's Starry, their origin, to watch a live show as research. Hamaji-sensei basically put a bunch of time into just understanding how bands work, the skill levels, economy, everything, which is why we get these band knowledge expositions in both the manga and the anime. She says it was a great way to educate both herself and the viewers about bands in general. But enough about research. I'd go back to my slave lab like every other STEM student out there if I wanted research. Band knowledge is good and all, but how did this basis of knowledge transform into a full-fledged story? Hamaji had a very detailed vision on how she wanted her story to be. From the very start, she said she took inspiration from K-On! But knew that as another cute girls doing band things from Kirara, Bocchi would automatically be compared to K-On! By the fan base. So she took care for it to, well, not be a K-On! Clone, by first basing Bocchi's band activities in a live house rather than a school club. Based off her personal interest, the four mains created, Bocchi, Nijika, Ryo, and Ikuyo, are based off the four members of Asian Kung Fu Generation, with the same last names, Goto, Ichiji, Yamada, and Kita. It's funny because Hamaji said she only took inspiration from their name, but miraculously, some of their interests actually matched, like Yamada's liking curry and Ichiji's listening to a genre known as melodic hardcore. As for the target audience, Hamaji wanted Bocchi to not just be able to attract the general otaku guy fanbase of Kirara or the intense band fanbase, but instead an overall general audience, and this led to many deliberate design choices. For example, not using vocabulary that are very specific to musicians, as it may bore most normal people, but still putting details into the instruments drawn, and adding subtle band references so band otakus can react like chimpanzees on a Tomorrowland flight. Some cool references? This door.
Here's Johnny!
Calling to this famous MV, Odoru, or this band layout, calling out to Wakamono no Subete. Hamaji also mentioned putting much effort into the characters themselves. She wanted simple designs and paid close attention to how their choice of fashion would reflect their personalities. Bocchi always wearing her classic jersey as a shut-in, Nichika rocking a more subculture maniac style, Ryo hitting the old school style as a music otaku, and Kita with a cute high school girl vibe with inspiration from brands such as Titty and Co. Because she has none. Well, speaking of flat, how about the Les Paul custom? Hamaji-sensei, after coming up with Bocchi's pink design, thought that a black color would coordinate with her pink well, so she literally started googling stuff like black guitar and the Les Paul would be on the top searches. With the design choices made, we move on to possibly the most important part, story and interactions. Bocchi is based off... Okay, Hamaji-sensei never explicitly said Bocchi was based off her, but she did say in an interview that out of all the characters, she was the most like Bocchi because she would always start off thinking about everything in a negative sense and had an endless imagination in her mind on what could happen. Many of the gags in the manga are also based off her real-life interactions. Like when she went to Starry for research, she mentioned the staff being scary, resulting in this. Or her not not knowing the difference between a bass and a guitar, resulting in this. So what I'm trying to say is, the Bocchi faces? A Hamaji sensei classic. Fun fact, since she wanted to make a gag comedy manga in the first place, when drawing, these Bocchi faces just naturally came to her without thinking, yet her editor would actually first oppose to these Bocchi faces. So what did she do? She drew normal faces for the draft and let it pass, then changed the faces back to Bocchi faces in the final manuscript. Best decision ever. You know, maybe cheating isn't so bad. Hamaji sensei mentioned that Bocchi really just started as a gag manga about Inkya. Oh, by the way, Inkya is basically a stereotype. Like introverted, dark and gloomy, usually an otaku, bad at communication, yeah, that kind of person. But slowly, as her manga got more and more support and was able to continue serializing, the story naturally progressed into a story about growth. About taking a step forward outside your comfort zone to new places, hoping the story would hit someone deep, seeing Bocchi take these steps. As you can see, Hamaji sensei clearly put a lot of thought into the world setting, characterization of the main cast, and small details enough to make an AOT fan rant in a 1-hour video essay. So how does one translate such a beautifully, carefully written tale successfully into an anime? The idea of an anime adaptation first came to the brain of now chief animation director Kedo Rida in spring 2019 when he was hanging out with now animation producer Umehara Shota. The two were at an illustrator solo exhibition when the man mentioned Bocchi the Rock as one of his favorite manga and would love to work on the anime if it ever got an adaptation. Umehara was like, "I got you, bro," and called up his senior at Cloverworks, Yuichi Fukushima, to ask about this mysterious series known as Bocchi the Rock. He then replied that Aniplex had conveniently just approached them with a project offer regarding Bocchi. Talks were continued to be made and eventually the two would become involved with the legendary Bocchi anime. At the very beginning, the person they chose to invite as director would be Keiichiro Saito, someone who debuted with extreme talent in Idolmaster Side M, and would eventually become the director of the #1 anime on Mao, Frieren. By the way, shout out to Phantom Sage for making this video and inspiring me to make this video. Check him out. Erika Yoshida was then chosen by the squad as series composer. They thought her work on Love Me Not was fantastic and reached out to her, in which she accepted. The main gang had finally gathered and production began, with the project from its very beginning to airtime lasting about 3 years. The director Saito had no prior knowledge of the Bocchi manga before being involved with the anime project, yet upon reading it, he quickly understood the vision that needed to be fulfilled. He at first thought that just like other Kirara manga, it would be a cozy slice of life manga. But by the end of volume 1, this impression quickly changed into a mix of comedy and coming-of-age drama. Saito was particularly impressed with the comedy, with Bocchi's face literally deforming into make-believe. But one very interesting point Saito pointed out that I personally never even realized myself was how he liked that the girls weren't overly reliant on each other like many other cute girls doing cute things manga. It actually stands true. Yes, they are close, but we are constantly shown the girls having their own time doing their own stuff, to the point where a group outing actually becomes a special event. Like, you know, normal friend groups. They're not glued to each other or unhealthily obsessed with each other. Okay, maybe not this one. This one's kinda freaky. While a deeply connected band, they each have their personal space and aren't hugging or groping each other every other minute. And that sense of realism in the sense of distance between people, both physically and emotionally, is what makes the portrayal of this main cast so special. After first impressions, what Saito really took a deep attention to is the overall depiction of Bocchi. At first, the team was actually planning to use normal logical scenes from most normal slice of life anime, but then realized that due to the nature of the manga, filling in with comedic over-exaggeration would be a far better solution. It's like my dad says, why talk it out when you can tear someone's face into a different shape alongside the faces that would make God cry if he realized he created humans based off himself? Saito made sure that Bocchi never communicated well and paid particular attention to the use of animation to make eccentric movements, so Bocchi would be a funnier funny. Yet at the same time, as much of a weird girl as Bocchi was, Saito didn't want to portray her as pathetic. I mean, fair enough, if I met a Bocchi in real life, I'd probably call a mental ward. Wait, but the weirdness is part of her charm. Even director Saito said, and I quote, "I personally think girls who are flawlessly beautiful aren't as cute as girls who are a little mysterious or sometimes makes weird faces. Therefore, the aim was to maintain a balance between cute and crazy, cool and weird." The other characters' deadpan responses are a way to make Bocchi's antics not seem too pathetic. And Saito even tried to make Bocchi look cute in some of the weird face scenes. Keyword, some. Bocchi was built to be a memorable character in both a negative way with her social ineptness and a positive way with her insane guitar skills. It's a nice balance between belly laughing and pog facing. In my case, I cried more than I did at kindergarten, bro. Other than Bocchi herself, as a music anime at its core, another aspect they really went all out on were the performing scenes. Real-life actors were hired to do the performance, and this performance would be recorded, a technique known as rotoscoping, aka tracing over recordings to produce fluid, realistic motion, would be used to make the performance scenes. Saito made sure to make them as perfect as possible, down to the very details, instructing the actors to move in very specific ways. For example, in just the snippets of performance in episode 1, it's highlighted that since Bocchi is not used to performing on stage, she not only made light movements, especially with her powers being held back by an extrovert's worst nightmare, cardboard. On the other hand, Ryo, being the veteran, confidently shows her skills with large movements playing with enthusiasm. Nijika and Ryo, as the two OGs, would also be shown to silently converse through eye contact, looking at each other mid-live. And all of this was for like a 20-second performance. Bro went for gold and got a White House, holy shit. These are the finer details that director Saito managed to give the characters consistently throughout the entire anime, and it's incredible. The love poured into this show is just heartwarming. On Kenorida's side, he was both character designer and chief animation director, bringing with him some well-made creative choices. I mean, bro has been a Bocchi fan since day one. This is like his dream project. It's like if I got to voice Chisato. In terms of character design, Kenorida was at first going for a very line-y art style, similar to that of the manga. But since the anime was aiming to have sporadic animation in a slapstick style with much movement, a simpler design with fewer lines would make production much easier, and Kenorida changed it to what we have now. Adding to that, many small changes were made to each of the main cast designs and expressions. Bocchi is shown to have her face covered by shadows and lining in the manga, but it would be a bit much for the anime, so instead they made her eyebrows a bit furrowed and making her always look distressed in basic situations. It's social anxiety, I get Bocchi. If I turned into dancing vegetation, I would be distressed. Since Nijika and Kita were the two extroverts, Kenorida made sure to have something to distinguish them by giving Nijika a more adult feel as the leader of the group, while Kita has a much more cheerful, bubbly, childlike immatureness to her. This comes to be a very important distinction as they didn't want the two being lumped into being the same character as the extrovert. As for Ryo, she's the cool girl, so they made her taller, and her expression doesn't change much. Regarding the characters though, one of the biggest boons of the Bocchi anime is not just the incredible animation, but the many insane styles, and this is eminent due to Kenorido's instructions. As the chief animation director, instead of hyper-correcting the other staff's work at the very end for consistency, he instead just gave all the animators a few of his own drawings as a standard and let them animate as they please. While it may be a little less consistent, this freedom allows for the many personalities of the different animators to shine, and it definitely shows. Bocchi exists in so many dimensions, Bocchi could save X-Arm. We then move on to the next stage. Casting the four main cast was done by both the anime team and Hamaji Sensei herself, and proved to be painfully difficult. The opinions of the staff was just everywhere, and at the end, the decision turned to Hamaji Sensei to choose based on her own vision and intuition. The casting for Bocchi and Ryo proved to be particularly hard, and Hamaji Sensei basically chose Yoppi because her delivery made Hamaji Sensei laugh, and Saku because she was the closest to her vision of Ryo. As for Nijika and Kita, the staff were conflicted because many people's auditions of them were extremely similar in nature and voice. In the end, Sayumi was chosen as she had a very Nijika-like upbeat vibe to her, and Ikumin, who fit Kita as well as being a very good singer, something that would come to be very important in the future. And so came together what would now be known as Kesoku Bando. The entire casting would come to be one of the best decisions made, as on purpose or not, all of them seem to reflect their actual character. Yoppi is literally an in real life Inkya who struggles socially with painful high school memories. Yoppi then mentions how Sayumin was like a beaming sunshine, lifting everyone's mood, bringing the energy and bringing the band together. In fact, Sayumin mentions looking up to drummers so much as a middle schooler, she asked for her parents to buy her just the drumsticks as a present and kept them to this very day. She then brought those very drumsticks and used them at the introductory PV audition and proceeded to pass. As for Ryo, Yoppi mentions that Saku started off by saying, "I'm not the type that talks a lot," which made her feel a connection to Saku. Saku then proceeded to talk a lot. This feels so Ryo, it's amazing. What a troll. Saku is even the most musically experienced in the gang, having started the acoustic guitar since 6th grade, has bass experience, and has performed in a band at a school culture festival before. And just like Ryo, she's kind of a weirdo. When she was little, she used to lick the white liquid inside the stems of dandelions. Do we have another weed demolisher here? She also loves watching survival videos of people eating grass and insects, to which all her friends say, "What? What the fuck? What the hell is this Play-Doh eating ass behavior? Do you ever wonder if art imitates life or if life imitates art?" Finally, we have Ikumin. She says she's the opposite of Kita, but then proceeds to mention that she was the type that had friends and could talk to anyone in high school, yet felt empty and grey on the inside. She also tried learning an instrument before and looked up to bands, but was really bad at playing. Sounds familiar? With a fantastic cast that even got the thanks of Hamaji-sensei for bringing her dear babies to life. In 2022 fall, a masterpiece, Bocchi the Rock, aired and received massive recognition from Japanese and Western fans alike. Even after 2 whole years, Kesoku continues to grow, having released multiple singles and albums, and currently, at this very moment, is having a live tour around Japan. But it's not over. It's not even close to being over. Maybe one day, Bocchi's lifelong dream of performing at a dome as a superstar will come to fruition.
でも私、確信したんだ。ぼっちちゃんがいたら夢を叶えられるって。だからこれからもたくさん見せてね。ぼっちちゃんのロック